I read a very interesting article on Psychology Today, which I'll link down below. It's an interesting read, and it's relatively short, so it's worth your time, I think. It was talking about over-medication with children in America, especially with ADHD, because we diagnose so many more kids today with ADHD than we really ever have throughout history. We just are handing out diagnoses, pretty much. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Now, it could just be a harmless diagnosis that doesn't mean anything, but when they get diagnosed, we start pumping them full of Adderall and other drugs. That can be a bad thing if they don't really have this problem. You might just think that there's something in the water that's making more and more kids get ADHD, but this article talks about two different viewpoints, two different reasons why kids' behavior might be weird, and why we may think they have ADHD when they really don't, and I think they make a lot more sense. The first one is that their behavior is changing because the environment is changing, especially via bedtimes. When I was a kid, I normally went to bed from about 9 to 9:30 when I was like in the K through 8 range. Today, a lot of kids go to sleep at like midnight or later. And that's okay to go to bed at like midnight if you have time to sleep in. Like I go to bed at about midnight, but I wake up normally 8 or maybe 9 if I have the time. These kids go to bed at like 1 a.m. and then they have to wake up at 6 or 7 to get ready for school, which starts at 8 a.m. every single day. They don't have time. They're losing the sleep. And that's going to mess with their mind. It means they're going to be less focused. It means they're going to be less willing to cooperate and behave. And we can misinterpret that as ADHD. Now, the other viewpoint they talk about is maybe it's not something different. Maybe it's just classic misbehavior. Kids are going to misbehave because they're learning about the world, they're learning about themselves, they're learning about other people, and because it's healthy for them to learn more about the world, they're going to push their boundaries. They're going to see what they can and cannot get away with. And that's probably the most important job of parents or the community, to let them know what they cannot get away with. Like if you go into the grocery store, it's not appropriate for them to lie on the floor and scream and cry and wail and tell you how horrible of a person you are because you won't buy them Count Chocula. Now, I've seen this because when I was a kid, I used to go to the grocery store with my mom occasionally. If I misbehaved, if she didn't tell me I was, then an employee might ask me to behave, or tell my mom to tell me to behave, or someone else in the grocery store, just like a regular customer, would tell me to behave. Nowadays, that doesn't really happen anymore. Like, I used to work at Kroger, and once in a while I'd see a kid misbehaving, like trying to rip open a package and just eat stuff. And I tell them, hey, don't do that. I'm not yelling at them, I'm being as respectful as I can. And not only did they like, you're not my mom or dad, go away. But if the parent sees me, they also come after me. I guess they're afraid I'm going to be a child molester for doing my job and telling them that they can't just eat food right in the aisle. Or just open stuff and take it because we can't sell it anymore. We don't have boundaries. We don't tell them what they can and can't do, so there's less pressure for them to learn how to cooperate and behave. That's another problem. These two solutions, or these two answers to the question, make a lot more sense to me. And if that's true, that means it's a lot less likely that all these kids have ADHD. So if it's not helping, then it's really not healthy. And is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think that's a scary thing. And I don't know why we don't talk about this more. I don't know why we don't talk about over-medicating kids and how that's probably one of the most dangerous things we're doing to children. I think it's important. I guess nobody else does, though.